Thought it would be very nice today if we could have a conversation about the reorganization plan that Erie's Public Schools is undertaking. This is obviously a huge project for the district, and I know that so many in the public, our stakeholders, community members, our families, are interested and have a lot of questions. So the purpose of today is to have a conversation and try to get some of those questions answered. With me today, Frank Petrarca, President of the Erie School Board, B. Svorski, Assistant Superintendent, and Brian Polito, Chief Financial Officer, soon to be Superintendent of the district. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So Brian, I'd like to start with you this morning. Can you just give us some background on the current state of the district's budget? There's been a lot of information out in the public, but where we are today in May of 2017, where is the district's budget process right now?
Right now we have till June 30th to pass a budget, and we have our preliminary budget is currently on the agenda, on the May agenda for approval, and it has a $9.5 million deficit that we will need to address somehow over the next couple months. A big component of that is the reconfiguration that we're considering for the upcoming year. If we do that, that will save us about $4.2 million. And really, that's one of the last things that we've identified, and the state advisors, Public Financial Management, has identified as something that we can do locally to help balance our budget. We've really gone through a lot of cuts over the last several years. Our cost per pupil is among the lowest in the state. We have cut 350 full-time positions, closed three buildings already, and cut our administration staff in half. So we're really down to very few areas where we can find additional savings.
So Mr. Polito spoke a lot about cuts in the budget. Mr. Petrarca, could you maybe talk about the revenue side of that?
Yes.
So I think a lot of people would say, if you've cut everything you can cut, why not raise more revenue in the form of taxes? Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, 34% of the city is nonprofit. So our tax base is based on the taxes we bring in to support the Erie School District. And we've, for the last 6 years since I've been on the board, have raised taxes several times. We've put the burden on the people of the city. And this is bigger than just the Erie School District. It's a citywide problem. If our district doesn't succeed, the city's not, people are going to want to move out. They're not going to want to come here because, you know, why do people move in? Good schools, good work, you know, and if we don't have that. To raise taxes, first of all, we can't tax our way out of the situation. Even if we go to the max, we still can't get even. We're still in a deficit. And to put that pressure on the taxpayers just isn't right. We need help from the state. It's just not, it's not a good thing for our city, for our school district, and for our kids to try to tax their way out. It's not going to happen.
Mr. Polito, Mr. Petrarca talked about taxing to the max. Could you elaborate on what that is? And can you also give us any information about why the state has indicated we should raise taxes and where you think that they maybe have some misinformation on that?
So under current law, we're allowed to raise our taxes 3.8% this year, and that would generate about $1.5 million. But our tax rate right now, as far as the school taxes, is among the highest in the county. When you include the city and county taxes, it is by far the highest in the county. In fact, if you look at some of our neighboring school districts, a $100,000 house there, the taxes are about $500 less than they are here in the city. So again, when you combine all the taxes, it really shows a big variance between the tax rate here in the city and out in the county. And that's something that we've been trying to stress in Harrisburg, as they've been talking about having us increase local taxes in order to balance our budget.
Okay. So moving on from the issue of the budget and the taxes then, you did mention that the district stands to save about $4 million a year with this reorganization plan. Where does the reorganization plan fit into the district's budget? Do you feel that this is the only way out of the current situation?
I think this is a big component of the way out. We've been talking about consolidation for a number of years. Dr. Badams, back in 2012, commissioned the optimization plan, which envisioned some additional consolidation. However, that plan came with a price tag of over $300 million in renovations. In today's dollars, that's probably closer to $400 million. So that's something that we really can't do. In the first round of the recovery plan, we did propose some renovations to our building and a consolidation very similar to the one that we're implementing right now. That came with a price tag of about $244 million in renovations. And again, that plan was rejected by the state, so we're going back again. This consolidation really envisions a renovation project closer to $67 million, which most of those dollars would go up to Central Tech.
Okay. Mrs. Svorski, could you talk about why the administration decided that it should recommend to the board this reorganization plan that Mr. Polito's talking about? So the administration had recommended a very aggressive plan, a plan that would be fully implemented in the 2017-18 school year. Can you talk about the administration's decision to make that recommendation?
Well, we know that there was a need to consolidate our high schools because of the number of seats that were available. And due to that piece and the lack of programming that we've been able to offer our middle school students, we felt that if we were going to do it, we want to do it now so that our students have an opportunity to have the best education that they could get. It is rigorous to do it. However, when we talked to all of the constituents, from the administrators to teachers to our listening tours that we had gone on, for the most part, everyone understood we needed to do it, but the need to do it was more urgent because of the programming and giving our students every opportunity to be what they need to be when they become adults and graduate from Erie Public Schools.
So it might be a good time then to just talk about the reorganization plan. What exactly is it going to entail, and what are some of the benefits that you see from this new plan?
So the beginning piece would be to have all of our elementary schools the same. So we would have pre-K through 5 in all 10 of our elementary schools. We would be taking 2 schools offline, which would be Wayne and Emerson Gridley. And then we would have 3 middle schools, which one would be housed at East High School, one at Strong Vincent, and one at Wilson, where it currently is at. And all of the programs that would take place there would be the same. They would be very similar. We would be offering them electives such as Family and Consumer Science, Intro to Computers and Programming, as well as STEM, and giving our students in the middle school opportunities to look at various careers so that they can think about what would happen in high school when we get to the magnet schools. And we would begin this year to give some offerings to our students in high school that they may not have had in the past, and really work at creating magnets that will help the students in the future. And this will take a few years to really get the true programming in place, so that we would have programs in the high school at both Collegiate Academy and at our new Central Tech, which would be named in the future.
So you talked about the closing of Emerson Gridley and Wayne specifically as the elementary schools. Can you speak about why those 2 schools were chosen as the 2 schools that would go offline?
Sure. We talked about which schools are in the most need right now of repairs, and Wayne is one of our schools that really truly needs repairs. Emerson Gridley also needs some repairs. However, when we looked at which schools to take offline, we had to look at the demographics, we had to look at the boundaries, which would be the best places and the best schools to keep all of our students, so they get a chance to be in the best schools that we have.
Thank you. Mr. Petrarca, what do you see as the district achieving through this reorganization? What are your thoughts on it?
Well, of course we're going to save some money because we have the 5,000 empty seats, and we've had them for a few years, and we tried cutting that down when we closed our 3 elementary schools, which we did cut some down. But what I see achieving here is giving the kids a better opportunity at learning. Being on the board for 6 years, this is the first year we've actually got to talk about curriculum, which is a wonderful thing. And what this administration is doing and turning a bad situation into a good situation for our kids is a wonderful thing. I mean, to be able to go in and have more opportunities to learn and have the same type of programming that districts around us have. I mean, that's a big thing. It's kind of hard when we can't offer what someone 5 to 10 miles away could, you know? So I think through that, it's turning a bad situation into good, giving the kids more opportunity to learn and coming out with a better education.
So, Mr. Polito, Mrs. Svorski talked about the demographics of the schools, the decision to take Emerson Gridley and Wayne offline, and in doing that, really needing to redraw the boundary maps for the entire district, because when you take 2 schools offline, you have to make room for those students. So one of the big concerns I know we heard in the listening tour was transportation. A lot of families now are going to be going to a new school and they're worried about how they're going to get there. Can you speak at all about how the district will be addressing those transportation needs?
Well, and that's one real advantage to the reconfiguration plan that we've seen here is with the reconfiguration, especially at the elementary level, redrawing those boundary lines allowed us to design them so that some of the more dangerous transportation routes are not there anymore. So we would have to transport less students. For example, down by the Bayfront right now, we have students that have to walk across that, and we have to transport them because that's a dangerous route. So in this new boundary map, those students are going to go to a school on the other side so that they don't have to do that. So part of this will be addressing some of those issues. In addition, we're hopeful that we'll be able to, through possibly a staggered start, be able to transport our high school kids as well. And what I mean by a staggered start is we would run possibly the high school and middle school students first, and then the elementary students would start maybe about an hour later. That way the same buses can pick up more kids. And by doing that, we feel that we will be able to offer transportation at the high school level, which is something that we've not been able to offer in the past.
Great, thank you. When do you think those decisions will be made? And when could families begin to know if the starting times for school will change next year?
That's something we're working very hard on right now. We're hoping to have something finalized by the end of this week. We plan on sending letters out to parents towards the mid-May or towards the end of May, somewhere in that time frame. We're hopeful, again, that will be in that letter. If not, we're going to send something out a little bit later.
So the other big concern that we heard out in the community was safety, and there has been a lot of talk about putting all these students at Central, putting kids together from different neighborhoods in town. What is the district doing to address those safety concerns?
Yeah, that's one of our #1 concerns as well. We want to make sure next year goes smoothly, that those students come to a building at Central that is ready for them and has all the supports they need in order for it to be a successful year. So we have a committee working very hard on a lot of the concerns that we heard during the listening tour. We're right now seeking input from the students as well to get some additional information on what they're concerned about and working to address that. We're looking at things like adding some additional cameras up at Central and possibly tying them into the county 911 system. Identifying different areas in the building that maybe we need some different supports or make sure we have some presence there. And also, as part of this, we really wanted to make sure we had the best team in place up there administratively to make sure that everything went well. So that was part of our reconfiguration to really look at who would work well up there and be able to make connections with the kids. And right now, we've put together a team of administrators that have connections with each of the 3 high schools that are merging into that building. And we're going to make sure that we have all the supports necessary there to make sure that it's a smooth start of the school year.
So Mrs. Svorski, you're definitely known as the positive one in the group, and so we've talked about the concerns, but I'd like, if you wouldn't mind, to talk about the positive things that you see happening, the programming that could be taking place, the expectations, the climate that you see for that new school next year. What can kids be excited and families be excited about?
Sure, definitely. We've been meeting, our programming committee has been meeting since the board has said, yes, move forward, but we've been talking about the different options our students should be able to have that they haven't had. So when we look at the programming that's taking place, we have magnets at this point with Career and Tech. We have college preparation through Collegiate Academy, and we also have some with fine arts. So we're going to really look at the fine arts and performing arts and visual arts and extend that a little bit more. We're looking at business, finance, and information tech, and really finding a program there, as well as arts and communication and the human services. We also are working on a 9th grade academy, which would be any student who comes into the 9th grade that really isn't sure what they want to do. We want to give them the opportunity to look at various careers, to have a chance to go to some of the VOTEC shops that we have to see, would they like that? Would they rather have something in the fine arts? And give our students a chance to see what is really out there. We also have a newcomer academy that we're working on for students who come in from other countries and they come to our schools. We want to give them an opportunity to see what's available, to try to infuse them right into the school and give them some skills they may need. And then as well as a recovery academy. And the recovery academy is to work with students who don't have the credits at this point that they need in order to graduate when they're seniors. So we want to give them some additional supports, some different options to make their education and their high school experience as positive as it can be.
So, Mr. Petrarca, Mrs. Svorski's really kind of laid out a vision that sounds like a new way of doing particularly high school in Erie's public schools. What would you say to families that are apprehensive about this change? Where can they get some more information, or what should they do if they're really feeling nervous about all the changes taking place?
Well, for one, I mean, at any time, go to our website at eriesd.org. All our information's on there about the reorganization and the minutes, and everything's there to learn. Really do your research on us. See what we're doing, see where we're going, what we're going to implement, and have trust in us. You got to trust us. We're not all here for any other reason but to give the kids a better education. And trust in us, see what we're doing, don't give up on us. We need everybody, we need all the support, and we're only doing this to give the kids a better education.
Ms. Svorski, Mr. Petrarca mentioned the website. I know there's some boundary maps available online there. So can you just talk a little bit about that, how families right now can go on and find out where they're going next year? And then can you also speak about hardships? So we've gotten some questions about if my child has been at a certain school for 3 or 4 years, will that be considered? And can you speak about that hardship process and why some decisions have to be made?
Definitely. So we do absolutely have on our website the boundaries and where your child would go. You could just put your address in and you can see exactly where your child would go. If you have concerns or questions regarding where your child is going, feel free to call our offices or contact us and we will definitely review your case. If it's a hardship, we definitely are reviewing hardships. There is a committee that works together to look at the hardships, and we want to make sure that our families feel comfortable with the changes that are taking place. And the other big piece is that we are going to have open houses. We really want our families to come into the buildings to see the excitement that our staff and our administration are working on. We want to understand that this is the end of this year, but in the ending of 1 year, we already are planning for the next year. And so we would love to have you come in, and that too would be available on the website to tell where each of the open houses will be.
So before I leave you, just one more question. Another really big concern has been the idea of class sizes. So something that we've heard from the public is these are going to be huge classes of students and they're jamming kids in buildings. Can you speak about how the district is approaching staffing in those classes?
Yes, we have used the rule of 25 for elementary and 30 at the most. That's the maximum for the high school and the middle schools. And we are doing that. So there will not be large classes. It will be to the same of 25 in the elementary at the most, that's the maximum, and maximum of 30 for the middle and high.
Thank you.
The same parameters we're using right now.
Thank you.
There's no change in how we're planning for the future.
So when we talk about a lot of kids, the other question is really about the new high school, current Central Tech. How are you going to put all these additional students into that building? Can you speak to that?
So right now we have about 3,500 high school students. Central Tech actually has capacity for about 3,400. Next year we're looking to put about 1,000 students down at Collegiate, so that leaves 2,500 up at Central. Now, again, the 3,400 is theoretical. We don't believe that would be a good fit to put that many students up there, but we are in the process of planning that right now and determining what space we need to reclaim to make sure that all those students can fit and get the resources they need up at the building.
So I think I heard you say that all of the district's high school students could theoretically fit into that one building,
yes.
But 1,000 are going to go over to Collegiate Academy. Right. So really, we should have ample space for the 2,500 or so
That's
that
correct.
will be. Okay.
Really, over the years, I think, and it happens in every building, we kind of expand to fill the space that we have. So we just have to relook at what we're doing up there and better utilize some of the space we have, as well as, again, reclaim some of the space that we need to. And we really owe a debt of gratitude to Serve Erie because they are going to help us out as we work through that. We're going to have some minor renovations up there to reclaim some of the space, and we'll need a lot of help as far as looking at our cafeteria areas and doing some paint and touch up and things like that. And they've really stepped up and are helping us do that.
I think it's important to know that we're not putting another 1,000 kids at Academy. It's going to be a total of 1,000 kids at
Yes.
Academy.
Thank you. That's certainly a good clarification. When we talk about Central Tech too, there's been a lot of talk in the media about what terrible shape that building's in, names called about that building. So can you speak just specifically, I think you mentioned just some of those touch-up items that would be dealt with over the summer so students could feel good about even going to that building next year?
We're looking at things like air conditioning. Right now the air conditioning is not working properly up there, so we're hoping to get that up and running. Bathrooms and bathroom stalls have been a big issue up there for a number of years, so we're hoping that we can address that. And again, some of the more cosmetic things like a fresh coat of paint throughout the whole building. We're looking at replacing a lot of doors in there as well. So there's a lot of things like that I think that when the students come back in the fall, they're going to see a huge difference in the way that building looks.
So that's short term. But what about long term? So we've heard some talk about a possible renovation, large-scale renovation project up at the new building. Can you speak about that?
Right. Long term, we need a renovation project up there to make this reconfiguration successful. That's a 60-year-old building. It really hasn't had any significant renovations since it was built. So that's a long time. When you look at the schools in the county, I don't think I can think of one of them that has not had a renovation in the past 30 years. So we're long overdue for renovations. Again, we have proposed about a $67 million project. That's based on what we feel we can afford with some assistance from the state. Not all those dollars will go up to Central. We're hoping to get that down so that there's some more dollars to spread out among some of the other districts in the building that need help, but again, that's all contingent upon state help. So as we work through this, we're going to have to ask Harrisburg for some additional help to make that happen.
Now, I heard you say $67 million, but I don't think you mean the district can pay for $67 million up front. How does that get spread out? Obviously, just like when you buy a home, you're not paying for everything up front. So speak to that if you don't mind.
So we've been working with our financial advisors, and they've really identified that in order to do a $67 million project up there, we would have to issue new bonds, but that would only increase our budget by about $3 million a year. So in the long term, really, we're increasing our budget by $3 million in order to generate the funds to do those construction.
So Mrs. Svorski, Mr. Polito has talked about additional students at Central Tech. Mr. Petrarca clarified 1,000 total students at Collegiate Academy. I think one of the questions we're also hearing is students who are currently in 8th grade. How are they going to know whether they will be at the new high school where Central Tech is or at Collegiate Academy? And if you don't know right now, when will those answers be available?
In the next few weeks, we're going to finalize the options our students will have for their scheduling purposes. And then that will be shared out, and we will determine which students will be going to which places. We already know that the career and tech students who have been accepted at the vocational side will definitely be at Central Tech. We also know that the college preparation from West Collegiate Academy has already been determined, so those are out. But we also have some other pieces that need to be added. We're adding the fine arts and the performing arts. We are adding ROTC to Collegiate as well. So those would be the programming that would be taking place at Collegiate. The other additional programs that are going to be taking place over at Central will be some of the, excuse me, the business, finance, and information tech. We'll be adding ROTC over there. We'll also be adding the human services strand. So there are going to be some additional pieces that will be available. But all of our students will either be at Central Tech or at Collegiate Academy.
And can students expect to have a schedule by the end of this school year that lets them know the classes they'll be taking next year?
Yes, they will.
Mrs. Svorski, could you speak about the middle school configuration? So we know that you mentioned consistency. We know that in our district right now, we have middle school being offered in a K-8 configuration and also in a 6-8 configuration. Can you talk about why you'll be able to offer more consistent programming in the 6-8 model?
Yes. So in the K-8 model, what that 6th, 7th, and 8th grade would get would be the core 4 courses. They would have the electives of art, music, and gym on a rotation that works with the K through 8 buildings. That being said, they didn't have an opportunity to have intro to specific instruments or have an opportunity to have chorus in a true chorus setting. They didn't have a chance to do different art courses, or the same thing with health and phys ed. So in the middle school model, what we can do is we can consolidate all of the programming. So we can offer our students all of the instructional instrumentals, art, music, gym, as well as family and consumer science, and as I said earlier, the computer courses and STEM courses. The other thing that's really exciting about our middle schools is that in the past 3 years, our district received a grant for health and phys ed. And with that grant, we were able to purchase state-of-the-art health and phys ed equipment for our students in the high schools. Well, we didn't have any in our middle schools. So what we're going to do is consolidate that so that 3 of our middle schools, every student from 7th through 12th grade will have a chance to use the equipment that would be for health and physical fitness and for wellness, which is a big piece of our health and phys ed programming.
So I imagine that's because if you mentioned that this equipment was available at the high schools, so for example at East and Strong Vincent, that equipment already exists. So you're just going to be adding it then at Wilson Middle School as the 3rd middle school, is that correct?
Yes, and it is going to be age appropriate because some of the equipment is not for a middle school. So that equipment will be sent to Central Tech and to Collegiate. So we will have additional equipment available for our students there, as well as the free weights that will be needed for athletics. And with all of that, again, it is state-of-the-art equipment that we have available to our students from 7 through 12.
So you mentioned athletics, and I think a lot of people think about school, obviously academics are the most important thing, but your activities are also very important. So Mr. Polito, can you speak a little about athletics? We've seen some concerns, people thinking they're not going to have a spot on a team, for example, because these teams up at the new high school will be consolidating 3. Can you speak about how the district might be addressing those concerns, and also maybe with offerings at the middle school, how they might feed into and make stronger those new programs at the high school?
Well, we're really feeling that we're going to have more opportunities for kids through this, not less. We have a lot of sports out there right now that, because we're separated among 3 different buildings with sports offerings, we can't field teams like wrestling, cross country, tennis, things of that nature that we will be able to provide with this consolidation. In addition, we're looking to really ramp up our intramural program so that we have opportunities for kids that maybe didn't make the cut on a specific team. And then in addition, by consolidating this, we're really going to be able to start strengthening our feeder program so that the sports teams at the lower grade levels will have, those students will have many more opportunities to participate in sports.
And Mrs. Svorski, I know that you've dealt with the All-City Marching Band, for example. Can you speak a little too? Mr. Polito mentioned feeder programs in athletics. How will this also help, for example, the All-City Marching Band at the high school level?
It would be the same thing. Our students would have opportunities in the music and in the fine arts in the middle schools, which will then be the feeder to our marching band and to our other programs that we have for jazz, choir, and some of the other fine arts that we have.
And Mr. Petrarca, I know that the board has looked at consolidation of athletics for a few years. Yes. It sounds like this will finally be achieved through this reorganization.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think we're going to be better off, and as Mr. Polito said, it's going to allow more opportunity for kids to play sports in other aspects of the athletics.
Great. So I think we've really covered a lot about, the changes, the positive nature, the work that the administration and the board are doing. If we could switch a little, Mr. Polito, to what the state's role in this has been. So we started off talking about the district's budget. There's been a lot of talk in the news for the past 2 years about the state's role in funding Erie's public schools. We're doing so much work here locally now. Where does the state need to fit in?
We are going to need help from the state. There's no doubt about that. We've had a number of different financial consultants and auditors come in the district over the last several years. All of them have said that we've made the cuts that we need to locally, and there is no way we can tax and cut our way out of this budget deficit. So again, through this consolidation, we feel this is the last big thing that we can do here locally to really help save some money and provide better opportunities for our kids. There is going to be a gap there after that. If you look at this year's budget, we have a $9.5 million deficit. This covers about 4 of it. There's still $5 million to go, and again, we don't have anything else left to cut. So as we move forward over the next several years, we're projected to have some additional deficits that could reach upwards of $19 million. So again, once we take into consideration the projected deficits in the future, subtract out the savings that we're going to realize on the consolidation plan, we still have a hole in our budget of somewhere, I believe, between $10 to $15 million, and that's really where the state will need to step in and help fill that hole so that we can start to move forward in a positive direction and start to grow these magnets and build these programs that our kids need.
So much was made in the press about the district's financial recovery plan that was submitted and rejected to the state for the amount of money that was requested in that plan. Can you talk a little bit about the status of that process? Will the district be submitting a new plan, and how will it be different from the one that was submitted earlier?
Well, the first one, we were advised to submit what our needs were. So we approached that plan as if we would provide the same exact education opportunities as school districts in the surrounding area, the county school districts. So when we put together the extracurricular needs that we needed to implement those type of programs and the renovations across all our buildings, which did total about $244 million, the price tag was about $31 million. And I know a lot of people looked at that and said that's a lot of money. But if you look at the state's funding formula, they just implemented a new fair funding formula, and if that full formula was implemented this year, the district would receive an additional $36 million. So again, that was under what we should be receiving from the state on an annual basis.
So I heard you talk about a $10 to $15 million request from the state. Would that just be this year, or would you be asking for that every year moving forward?
It would be every year. So again, this is a scaled back request. It only envisions $67 million in renovations across the district, implementation of the magnet programs, but we would need an infusion into our subsidy of $10 million a year in order to make that work.
And when does the district expect to possibly hear whether or not it would be receiving that additional subsidy?
We're hoping through the budget process. The state has the same deadline as we do to pass their budget June 30th. We're hoping that they will pass it on time this year, and we will know what, if anything, the state will have in the budget to assist us.
So, Mr. Petrarca, I think in the public there continues to be some questions, even from some candidates for public office, about whether or not the district is simply mismanaging funds. It's not doing what it needed to do. Sitting where you have been on the board for a number of years, can you address that directly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, since I've been on the board for 6 years, we've done nothing. I came on when we had the $26 million deficit. And from that point on, we've done everything every year that we possibly could to balance the budget. We've cut people, we've cut jobs, we've closed 3 elementary schools, and it just got to the point where, and we knew it was going to come to this point, and we were trying to keep ahead of it, but eventually you hit that wall, and it's time you need an influx of something to help you out. And we're not saying that we're going to keep coming back to the state every year. This is a one-time deal. Give us the influx, we won't be back. We've tried to do everything possible. Dr. Badams was a big thing in that. His plan was a good plan. If anything, it's made the community more aware of our situation and what we've done.
But I think I heard you say that if the district would receive this $10 to $15 million subsidy that would go in and they would receive every year, that we would not be asking the state for additional
Absolutely.
funds.
We'll be good. We won't see them again.
So I think on that note, maybe we could end today just with each of you, your vision. Mr. Petrarca, you just mentioned we would not be going back to the state. This funding subsidy, in addition to the reorganization plan, would really be a new chapter in the history of Erie's public schools. So I wonder, Mr. Polito, if you could start, what is your vision moving forward, and where do you see the district moving if all of these things come together?
So we really feel this is a positive move. We've been talking about consolidation for a number of years. Yes, it does save us some money, but really, more importantly, it provides better opportunities and more opportunities for our students. What we're doing with the magnet programming is something that I think is really unique. I don't know of any school district in the area that offers all magnet programming, so students have a choice of what type of programming they want to take at the high school level. We really feel that once we have this up and running, it's really going to help with student engagement because we're specifically lining our curriculum up with career paths, so students can really select a path and move forward and be ready once they graduate to go into the workforce or go on to further education.
And Mr. Polito, as you take over as superintendent on July 1st, how are you feeling about kind of the future of the district?
I'm feeling very positive right now. Again, we need a little assistance from the state, but we are moving in the right direction. This change will allow us to stop this cycle of budget cuts and deficits and move forward and start to do some long-term planning and again do some great things for our kids.
Great. Thank you. Mrs. Svorski, what's your vision moving forward?
My vision, as we've been looking at this programming, is the best thing for our students and gives our students opportunities that they haven't had recently, and it also looks at the future of Erie and the community. And when I look at what the magnets will do, if a student is interested in an area, we are working with the local universities to give our students opportunities for college credits so that when they graduate from our Erie Public Schools, they will have a path for their future. And that's the future of Erie, and it's the future of Erie Public Schools.
Thank you. Mr. Petrarca.
Yeah, first off, I'd like to thank everybody in the community that has come out to help us. We've really gotten great support, and I think through this process, I've learned that it's brought the community closer together. And I envision, I always speak about getting back to when I went to school. The opportunities were endless back then, and that's where we want to be. We want to get the best education for our kids, just like they do in the surrounding areas. They have it, and we have to get our buildings back to state of the art and just give the kids the best education we possibly can.
Well, I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to let our viewers know that they can follow the progress of the reorganization process on our website, eriesd.org/reorganization. There's a frequently asked question page, as well as the boundary maps that Mrs. Svorski talked about, and weekly minutes from meetings of the reorganization committee to let our stakeholders know how the plan is progressing. So thank you very much.